Truth Talks. Please, I'm excited about the Truth Talks. They are addressing true fellowship and what it means, what true fellowship and corporate worship looks like according to the Bible.
All right, where were we at last time? 1523. Somebody help me real quick. Who picked the northern side? Who picked the southern side? Crystal said she ain't picked none. She just somebody in she in Israel right now, just waiting for the kings to get their act together. I probably would have been like you, Crystal. We'd have been standing there like, man, these kings is crazy. No, we'd have been Israel. We'd have just been the ones that wasn't having it, because at the end of the day, were there good people in the land? It could have been everybody bad, because we get right here about one good person who the first time we hear him, the first thing he do is what? Shut up the heavens and you ain't getting no rain. He must have been a good person. And we hear a lot about good kings, so we know it's some good people. Everybody wasn't bad. We got people tearing down stuff. All right, so what verse did we say we was on in Chronicles? Look how many heads popped up, because nobody said we was on Chronicles. All right, 19. So let's get a recap. So we went over a couple kings, right? We crossed a couple kingdoms. We was bouncing back and forth between the north side and the south. We started to see that the north side, Asa, was the king. He was kind of running things on his side. He was doing things righteously. As he was doing things righteously, Jeroboam on the southern side was just having his own way over there, doing whatever he wanted. Wars started to pop up. Generations of Jeroboam's children started to be born because he passed, right? As he passed, what happened was, well, I'm not going to go too fast far as passing. We all know what happened when he passed, right? And how he passed and why he passed. Do I need to go back over that? All right, so we know he passed. And in passing, his son stepped up. And his son was just as bad as he was, corrupting the land and the people. So again, internal fighting began. This was during Asa's time. Now, I know we read it, right? Last time we said Asa had bad feet. We read all that stuff, and Asa had bad feet. But before Asa had bad feet, he was doing some things in his kingdom, right? Because if we left off right where we left off last week, we jumped right into Jehoshaphat, right? Like it just says Jehoshaphat, and then it goes kind of like in all of the things that's happening with the South, because the Northern Kingdom is doing what's right. So we're kind of getting a report on what the Southern Kingdom is doing. Now we know Baasha's sins, they grew. And eventually Baasha was given a prophecy as well. And what was this prophecy given to Baasha? Am I saying that right? Baasha. What was the prophecy given to him? For his wickedness. Because remember, his son, well, Jeroboam's son dies, right? He gets killed by who? It's right there. Depending on what side you stuck with. Zimri, right? And Zimri was another person from the tribe, right? So Zimri killed him, and then him and Baasha goes to war, right? They're fighting over Israel. Israel is now a battlefield. Can you imagine? Like, I always look at a lot of the History Channel growing up, where I used to watch a lot of it. And for some reason, the History Channel loved to show everything about the Civil War. Like, the Civil War is like one of the main things they focus on. And all of the things that I've noticed about the Civil War, minus the slavery, is the battles, the conflicts. It's so ugly because it's literally right here on your home soil. Some of these men would fight after a long day of fighting, literally have to go live right next door to their brother, who may have been on the Mason-Dixon line. You literally had to fight with brothers versus brothers. It was ugly. America at that time was bloody, and it wasn't any other people's blood being shed. It was their own. It was our own. So think about Israel right now in its current state. Blood is on the ground. Not so much just the people that are sinning. Now we actually have blood being spilt in Israel. Remember what they talk about in the New Testament? Your fathers spilled blood on the land. This is blood being spilled. Brother's blood. It ain't just anybody's blood. All right, so we see Bosham, right? And then what happens with him? We follow the path of Jeroboam. He got it, and you thought, hey, I got it. I can make it right. I can sit in his throne. Nope. He said, I want to be just as wicked and corrupt the land to do even more. And eventually what happened to him? Right. Because that was the prophecy, right? That was the prophecy I was getting to. All right, so let's put a lot of this together because I was running through a lot of things today. You mentioned Amari, right? In chapter 16, we went through a lot of it. I just talked about Zimri, how he destroyed Zimri. Zimri captured the city, Zimri, when he was fighting Baasha, saw that the city was captured, he ran into the king's house, and he burned up with it. He was only in charge for how many days? 7. He didn't even have a long run at it, right? All of his stuff was in there, and then Omari took over, right? But this is where we see a divide, because I wanted to get here, because we talked about all the other stuff that went on. But this is where we see a divide. All right, so I'm at 16:21. Now, the kingdom has already been divided. We're not talking about a divide inside of Israel and Judah. Now we're talking about divide inside of just Israel. I want you to be mindful here. Asa, yes, ma'am. 6 Kings. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Kings 16. It's okay. It's all right. I'm going between both chapters, so I'm going to try to be as mindful as possible to let y'all know where I'm at in these books. All right, so Kings chapter 16. What did I say, 21? 21. So now we're getting ready to see internal conflict in Israel. So not only do we have a kingdom divided, now we're going to have an inner division of this kingdom. So imagine if somebody said, here go a piece. Okay, I don't have to imagine. I can give you a real life story. When I was a little kid, if this has happened to you, let me know, because then you can relate. When I was a little kid, I used to ask my mom for a piece of gum. And it was double mint gum, the 25-cent pack that came with like 5 sticks. And I would think, man, I'm about to get me a piece of gum. My mom said yes, and I'm happy. She would literally take the piece of gum out and rip it in half. Now I'm thinking to myself, wow, at least I'm going to get a half. Things ain't that bad. And then if somebody said, well, can I have a piece? My mom would look at me and say, rip that half in half. You get what I'm saying? What I'm trying to tell you is this. This kingdom is like that piece of gum. Asa is sitting over here and he's chewing on his half. And he ain't saying a word. He's doing everything he's supposed to. But over in Israel, they too busy asking for more gum, getting their gum ripped in half more and more. So now we see this kingdom further divided between these two, but it ain't going to be divided by long because they said one person was, he was what? And the other one was what? One was strong and one was what? Well, let's read it and find out. We don't have to guess, the words right there in front of us. And Zimri died, and conspiracy made not written in the books of Enoch. We talked about them books and how they were destroyed. The people of Israel were divided into 2 parts, not the whole kingdom, the people. Because I'm going to point out something very clear here. What's going to happen to Israel to make it clear to some of Andy's questions last week about why things were still up and not taken down during Asher's reign. See, I didn't want to get too far, but I'm going to catch you up. So stick with me here. Because this is Israel we're talking about. Asher's righteousness was kind of like, hey, did he do it or didn't? That was one of the things we talked about last week, right? Well, here it is. Let's get the answer to that question, the definitive answer. These 2 people of Israel, right, were divided into 2 parts. Half of the people followed Tibni, son of Githnath, to make him reign, and the other half followed Amari. That was it. Omri, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. Omri. My bad. It's a big O and an M and an R. I know sometimes I slip. I know. Yeah, that's it, right? So, and some followed Omri, all right? But the people who followed Omri were stronger than the people who followed Tibni, so son of Githnath. And Tibni died in Omari reign. So look what just happened. Hostile takeover. Kingdom divided. You're weak, I'm strong, I take it. What are they starting to reflect when it comes to how they change the rule of this throne? By might. These thrones are being taken by might. Remember, let's not get too far. We're Israel, right? And then we're seeing these thrones taken by might. What is missing? Well, we know the Lord is missing, but what's missing that we would have seen every great king that came, even the ones who tried to come into succession by doing it illegally? What did they do? Well, let's go back to Absalom when it was his time to try and take over. Did he go to the highest place and do this openly? Celebration? had priests to come and anoint them, right? But we see these kings taking thrones. There is no anointing on these kings. Y'all notice how that just went away? Remember that the priest would come and, hey, you want some oil on your head? Boop, you're the king. God told me to come over here and do that. Nobody's doing that anymore. Literally, slit your brother's throat, now you sit on a throne. Where is the anointing? We see that the anointing of the king has went away. The promise is still there, but the anointing is going away from at least the southern side of Israel. Now, why do I say Israel? But why am I saying the anointing is leaving the southern side of Israel and not just saying Israel and Judah? Why am I saying it? But Israel as a whole, it's not a one. Just because the 10 tribes, I don't want our mindset ever to focus on the 10 tribes over here and like, oh, they're just over there and they're by themselves. Yes, the scriptures does tell us this. We know it's a divide, but we also know that if it's a divide internally, that it's a divide as a whole. You know, sometimes we hear a lot of things about churches and they talk about how one church has this group and that church got this group, but yet they're a church in one body. How so? How so? You're internally divided. What they say about a house that's divided? It can't stand, but what does it take to take over that house? Who has to come into that house and take it over? It says a strong man, right? A strong man has to come because the house is separated. Everybody's in there. Strong man come and tie up whoever you want to. Tie you up, because everybody is confused and arguing internally in the house. I'm saying that as a metaphor for you to look at as us as people, but also history has proven this to be true. A strong man came in and took things from their house as a whole. What you got?
Yeah, it just goes to show how this was started out to be a political division. You know, we started with Jeroboam and Rehoboam, one what they have yoke on the people's neck. And now it escalated to a spiritual division, you know, which they never saw coming, but seemingly forgot the whole purpose of why they existed. And so when they start fighting among themselves, they fight as though their purpose that they're fighting is for their own gain and not for the glory of the Lord.
Everything becomes individual, tribe-centric. You notice how many tribe names were slipping? I think Naphtali slipped in there once, Issachar. Like the tribes are now starting to take names. It's no longer just the 10 tribes. It's whatever tribe that we're talking about at this time. It's whatever time. We're reflecting right where we are, our tribe, and we're the most important because our survival is what we're really focusing on. Each one of these ones has stepped up as a sovereign, as a king of Israel, was never really anointed as the king. Consider it, they have a throne, but it's an empty throne, because right here is a statement. In the first year of Asa, king of Judah, Omri became king over Israel and reigned 12 years. He reigned 6 years in tarnish. So we still have, now we have someone sitting on this side and someone sitting on the side. Y'all following me now with these kingdoms? Huh? I'm still following along. 23. And he bought a hill. Now this is Omri buying a hill of Saramit from Shimmer for 2 talents of silver. Remember we talked about how big them talents are. Built on the hill, he called it the name of the city which he built, Samaria. And after the name of Shimmer, the owner of the hill. So this hill that he just named, what does this later become? Remember the woman at the well? Very familiar hill, right? That she's on, that he's building right now. So we're seeing how if those two people had to function side by side in time, we see things. What you think her crowd would be after meeting Jesus? Hey man, that hill that you buying for them 2 talents in silver, it ain't worth a hill of beans. Because the truth is we worshiping what? What did Jesus say that we worshiping? Spirit and truth, right? But we see right now that this is the start of the kingdoms. Well, not the start, but we see some of the ripples in time from the kingdom's divide. These echoes, these things that the people who, when Jesus would have been doing his ministry, they would have understood these things that he's saying. Oh yeah, I remember that hill that was purchased so long, long ago by our ancestors. How could we forget? This is how we get here. Now we also understand why the story in Luke, I think it's 10, about the Good Samaritan? Now we see why it's not so, why him helping him on the road, it was actually like, wow, you helped this guy? Because they were literally to a point where they would kill each other. They didn't like each other. Enemies. Like you see them, they warn internally. So what make you think they'll do to an outsider who beat down on the road? But we see that the heart changes later on in the New Testament. But we see right here the purchase of this hill. All right, so he purchased this hill. And he walked in the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nebat. We're talking about Amari, right? And he walked in the ways of Jeroboam, meaning he did the same things as Jeroboam's son did. So again, we have another king who is, what did Jeroboam do? He was, we can't just keep saying wicked. Wicked. You know, I used to ask people questions, and I'm not saying that's not a bad answer. That's a good answer. That's the right answer. But when we say what, like when somebody said, man, he was wicked. How?
He turned the people from God, picked out the Levites, the priests, and created his own priests.
So when we hear that these people got worse, that they did even more wicked, how can you possibly do more wicked? Like I mean, if you already got the calves, would you build more calves? Would you got more? Would you take more people away from God? Like,
you know what your father did was wicked, and you continued.
So in other words, go ahead.
Also, you can do more wicked when the initial wickedness hadn't been dealt with. That would lead to more wicked.
His wickedness was compound. We hear about the good kings, like you said. The good kings, they came in, they seen what's bad, and they changed it. The bad kings came in and said, everything is fine, let's add on. If you don't trust what I'm saying, when we get to Ahab, you'll see exactly that. Everything in my kingdom is good. I'm just going to add on more to what I want to do. I'm going to add on the Baal worship. I'm going to add on more Asherim. I'm going to let the people worship how they want in the land. I'm going to tax them for their work. I'm going to do, if this last person was wicked, I'm going to do worse. Now, where have we had like a verbal example of somebody actually standing up saying they was going to compound a wickedness compared to someone else in the scriptures?
Not too long ago.
He said, "I'm a compounder." We've been in the Old Testament for a while, and he was one of them Old Testament ones.
We can't talk about Solomon.
Yeah.
He said, I'm gonna put a heavier yoke on your neck.
Solomon wasn't the first one to compound stuff. Solomon was a rookie when it came to it. There was a man by the name of Lamech, right? And when Lamech said, when Lamech was in the land, and everybody was coming to Lamech, Lamech said, if Cain's death made a man have to face God, I'm paraphrasing here, sevenfold, right? Because that'll be on him. Well, I've killed many men. Let that be on me 7 times 7. So this compounding thing of wickedness hasn't started. Remember when Jesus was saying, you are your father's child. We all look the snakes, the adders, but literally, he's telling them, you are wicked just like them. You have not changed. Your heart is still stone towards the Lord, just like they were, just like Lamech's was, just like when Solomon compounded the work, just like anybody, just like Jeroboam's when he created the golden calves. All we are seeing is hardened hearts and disobedience. Remember what they say, the heart is what? Hardened hearts. Now I tell you, historically, I went and looked up some of the things. Historically, the heart and the mind was how people think and felt. So when they talked of the heart, these people felt evil. Their heart was constantly saying, what can I do mean or evil next? How can I benefit me? How can I make it hard on the people? Imagine if I came in here and I said, you know what? I had an opportunity. Let's say I was leading. And I controlled the opening and closing of the door. And I came here every day at 7 o'clock. How many people would stay? How many people wait to 7? We don't know, right? We only know that, man, Petey should have been here at what time? And if I'm making y'all wait, it's probably because y'all might say, oh, well, maybe you got it. But if I just show up at 7:30 and be like, oh, yeah, I felt like making y'all wait because I had a right to. I had the power to. That has nothing to do with, that has nothing to do with mistakes That's literally me just being mean, spirited, hard-hardened to the people around me, not seeing that, hey, I should have been here for them. I should have been early. You see what I'm saying? A hardened heart, your way of thinking. You have a hard way of thinking, a hard way of doing things. And look at Israel's example. They had a hard way of doing it, so much that Jesus had to come and say, look, I'm tired of you guys. Take my yoke, for it is easy. Because y'all have made it hard. I didn't. God has not made this thing hard, not one time. Even in the difficulties when he should be like, I just want y'all gone. He still doesn't make it hard. He sent them in captivity so they can grow more. He sent them there and told them, hey, keep having kids, raise families, do all the beautiful things over in Babylon where your oppressors are going to be on you, and y'all going to have a fruitful life. In fact, go plant trees in their vineyards. So even in their hardship, he's already finding kindness for them. But they constantly make it hard. All right. So let's continue to see how they make it hard. So Asa is now, him and Omari, right? Omri. They running side by side. All right. They running side by side. All right. They built up Sumerian. I got to say it because mine say something complete. It's hard to pronounce here. Sorry. All right. All right. Then Omri dies. And then we know that he walked and he was wicked. In fact, it says worthless. Worthlessness. You know, to be called worthless is one thing, but to say that your works was worthlessness, it means that it's just nothing. In fact, when I think of a nest, like the word worthlessness, I think my brain sometimes wrap words together, and I'm like, maybe it's not like that, but this is how I put it here. When I think worthlessness, I think of a place, right? Birds sit in a nest. And I think of a nest that is empty, nothing in it, nothing filled. It has zero use in the world, but yet it's not destroyed. It sits on the side of the hill with birds never nest in it. In fact, it was something that was built to be a resting place for the birds, to be something to keep them warm and shelter. But instead, God chose to say, this nest is worthless. It will never fulfill its purpose. So when it's saying that these people were worthless and their deeds were worth, it means that it was purposeless. Their whole life was lived empty. Now, why was their life lived empty? Because they did a lot of wicked stuff. Why was their life empty? Because what? Disobedient, idols, what else? You know why their life was worthless? Because it was their life and they never gave it to God. They tried to run it themselves. They kept building. It was a worthless life. It was empty. It had no prosperity in it, no matter how much good they would have did, because these people never turned to the Lord, right? We see it. They wicked, worthless. All right. So we on 16:27. And the rest of the acts which Omri did, and the mights that he attained, are they not written in the book of annals in the kings of Israel? So Omri slept with his father and was buried in Samaria. And Ahab, his son, reigned in his place. Now, we're going to switch to Chronicles 18. And the reason why we're going to Chronicles 17. And the reason why we're going to Chronicles 17 is because this whole time I've been kind of telling you about the southern kingdom. But the northern kingdom has been doing everything over there. And if I just jumped into Ahab, which is the king who makes a deal with what other king from the northern tribe, because Asa is dead, right? He's going to die. 2nd Chronicles. Jehoshaphat. Remember we mentioned him a long time ago back in the earlier chapters? And it was like, and Jehoshaphat took over reign after who? Asa, right? So now we can tell Jehoshaphat's story, because Jehoshaphat's story is going to get kind of like, it's not going to get pushed out of it, but we're going to start, as we go into chapter 17, we're going to meet a prophet. Well, we already met one. We actually meet one here too in Chronicles. And we're going to find out Ahab's favorite thing to say about prophets was this: they ain't going to say nothing good about me anyway. They ain't got nothing good to prophesize with me. That is his favorite thing to say about anybody who goes and asks about a prophet that comes from Judah. Why do you think he's saying that?
God always punishes.
Not only that, who was Ahab a descendant of? And then on Jeroboam's side, that lineage, that side of the kingdom. When I say who's, huh? Right. And it said, God said, anybody. Y'all going. So Ahab gets in there, and Ahab is one of the ones that's just going to double down on all of the bad. He ain't gonna pick a side to be good on. He's just gonna say, I'm gonna just double down. But let's talk about Jehoshaphat. And Jehoshaphat is the son, after Asa, Jehoshaphat, his son, reigned in his place, and he strengthened himself against Israel. Wait a minute. Jehoshaphat strengthened himself against Israel? Okay, stay with me here. All right, so he strengthened, and he placed the army on all the walled cities of Judah, and he set a watch post in the lands of Judah and the cities of Ephraim, which Asa, his father, had taken. And the Lord was with Jehoshaphat, for he walked in the former ways of his father David, and did not seek the Baals or the lords or the false gods or the deities in the land. But he sought the Elohim. Now, I say that specifically here because in this old text, yours might say God, but this is saying he sought the Elohim, how can I put it? The understanding that the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. So he's seeking them. Now, granted, this isn't etched out to say all of those words, but your text may say God. Mine says the dialect that they would have said in the Hebrew, and the reason why I share it is because you would think that in the Old Testament that they say, hey, you never heard of anybody searching out for the Spirit or that. This is how they would have combined that in one conversation. So this is something that was always known to them. It wasn't a difference. It wasn't a difference that it was not known that there was a physical manifestation of the Lord. We all understand that? Let's go back, because I don't like just saying things without proof. If we go back to Samson, right? We don't have to go there, but if y'all remember our teachings from the Judges, right? Samson's mom and dad had an encounter. And what did they say? This day we have seen who? The Lord, right? That's not the first time that has happened in the scriptures. There have been many a times when they say, I have seen the Lord. On this day, I have seen God. So it wasn't a understanding to those who were following God that there was the Creator, the Father, who sat high in the throne. Remember, he used to descend in a column of flames and what else? Flames by night, smoke by day, right? So that's a physical. I'm not saying that was his physical body, but that's how the Lord would physically come down to the people of Israel, so that they knew that the Lord had a physical presence on earth. But they also knew that in his absence, that he filled the everything around him, the spirit of everything around him, because it's all his creations. You see what I'm saying? This would have been something that they would have commonly understood as people of Israel. You get what I'm saying? Because when we get to Jeremiah later on, because I'm going to bring some of the things into what he's saying as we go forward. When we get to him, he's going to make a very impactful statement. You know, Jeremiah actually said in his prayer, he said, they will call me Father. That's a callback to when he told them, you are my son, Israel. You are my son, and I am your father. So going forward, saying it again is a reminder. It isn't something that Israel would have taken as new. But as we go even further down into the New Testament, we see that when he claims that the divinity of God the Father sitting on the throne of heaven as his father, it literally shattered their world because they had gotten so far away by everything that's going on now. Get where I'm going? All right, so let's stay with me. Stay with it. All right, so we got Jehoshaphat. We're in Chronicles. I'm on 5. So the Lord established the reins of his hand, and all of Judah gave presents to Jehoshaphat, and he had great riches and glory, and in his heart was exalted in the ways of the Lord, on the ways of God, and he again removed the high places and ashrams from Judah. How did they get back in there? Man, these things keep coming and popping up. So remember when I said I was going to give you an answer to how those things keep popping up? The one thing that's happening in the land is this, because we always hear it at the end of the kings that we know is bad. And these kings were wicked and made the people do what? They made them, these kings was wicked and made the people sin. So when you see an Asherim pole, it's like this. It's not like now when we got to worship, we got to have a building, you got to serve. These people will go outside, find a tree, chop it up, make it what it was. They would fashion it how, and they were right there and worship. And more people like, oh yeah, you made the new Asherim. So he had to constantly keep working to take them out of the land. That's why he was righteous, because he was constantly doing it. He never settled on it and let it in the land. But when his son came, Jehoshaphat, he had to continue to remove them because the people were. There you go. Y'all know what an Asherim pole is? What is it? Oh, you said it. Now you got to tell us. Now you got to tell us. What's an Asherim pole?
Well, all I have to do is describe it as
Describe it? Huh?
That's why they go with pole.
Best example ever. He said that if you think of it like this, if you ever been to Hawaii, or if you're not, if you ever seen a show, luau's, anything like that, they have the tiki, right? And then all the tiki fires in the flame. And what's next to the tiki? The totem pole. Now, all my life, man, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this totem pole and I'm happy. But I want you to know, that's an Asherim pole. It is built to different gods. Look at it. Each god has a head, it got a bird, and they stack them on top of each other and they dance around them in fires and flames, and we all clap and say, hey, I'm happy to be in Hawaii. Think about how many times you don't clap your hands because you don't been at a tiki thing or that, and they got the totem pole. I'm just telling you, not to associate or to make you afraid of the world. I'm just letting you know how easy it is for Israel to fashion an Asherim pole and have people dancing around it. Because it ain't too hard to do it right here in Jacksonville anytime they want to do a Polynesian festival or whatever other festival they want to do. They'll set up a totem pole in the middle of it. And
dances that they do is dancing to their God, you know.
So,
you know, it's funny you say that, 'cause when I moved in my house, I had an Asherim pole there, and it had a lot of, it's in the backyard for a while, you know. To me, it's not a god. The people who moved up before me were from Hawaii. You know, I was playing the day now. I say this is their god. This they have in the yard.
Now, I'm not saying that, and I'm correcting myself here. I'm not saying that those are the gods of Hawaii. All right. What I'm saying is historically, those things represented certain things throughout history. So an Asherim pole would have been an example. In fact, an Asherim pole, you could have gave me an example of Moses. I mean, not Moses, Abraham, right? Abraham. What did God tell Abraham to do? Fashion a what? Go out there, get a stick, get some brass, wrap it around and make 2 snakes and drop it. I'm sick of them. Whoever look at it, they're good. Jesus Christ came and he retold that same thing in the New Testament to Nicodemus. But he said it in a nicer way. He said, anyone. He said, just like Moses when he fashioned the Asherim pole and it saved all the people that looked at it. Now, when Moses fashioned this Asherim pole, what did you think the people of Israel who were devout said to that Asherim pole? Especially when they known in the land that it was wicked. Abraham comes out with a big pole, him and Joshua, they carrying it, and they get it to the top of the hill and they drop it. Boom, right at the top of the hill. What do you think people who say, we don't worship idols, that's crazy, I'm not going to do it? What you think them snakes did to them people? Right. So when Jesus is giving that message about, and I know I'm going on a little bit about the Asherim poles, but when Jesus gave that message and said all they had to look, that was the example. People who were there, it would have been difficult for them to understand, to look at a pagan thing, an Asherim pole, for healing. Right? But this is what he told them to, because Jesus came and said, as an example, I'm going to be just as shocking, but if they look to the cross, they will receive the same salvation. You get where I'm going with that? So the Asherim pole, God has shown us that he can use it how he wants, for an example, who he wants, and he can do what he wants. Again, I'm showing the sovereignty of it, but I'm also showing the fact that when these kings would take over the land, the first thing they got rid of was all of the places that people would go and worship. It wasn't the kings that was fashioning these things up. You got a land full of people that will construct a tree and start praying to it in a heartbeat. Because eventually, when we get to Baruch, and I know I might be teaching this for a while, and we might dabble into some of the prophets. I know I said Kings and Chronicles, but I'm going to give you a little bit of prophets. Baruch said, in his prayers and his revelations and his understanding, if you want to go back and read it, check it out. He said, when God was telling him, God said, not only am I punishing you, punishing the city for the kings, but I'm also punishing it for the sins of the people. They're not getting off of this because the kings did it. They were wicked too. The kings weren't the only ones that got taken into captivity. This thing, God could have chopped the king head off, put a new king on the throne. It was a whole. Israel as a whole was becoming corrupt. And that corruption went from Israel, because when you think about it, Judah should have been doing what to Israel? Couldn't really do anything, but should have treated it like the other people. Put them under the ban, total annihilation, get them out of here. But you would have wiped out 10 of the 12 clans. But God had a plan. He always knew that it was going to be a remnant from these tribes, because he scattered them abroad to make sure that remnant was there. All right, so he was exalted. In the third year of his reign, he sent leaders. Now remember, we talked about Jehoshaphat sending leaders out to do what? Teach, right? Because I can't tear everything down. I have to send people out to teach. And he taught them the book of the Torah, or the law, and the fear of the Lord. I'm paraphrasing here. I'm at 10. All right. And the fear of the Lord fell on the reins of the land around where? Judah specifically. And they did not fight against Jehoshaphat. In fact, he was so profitable and so loved by God that their enemies, the Philistines, came and said, hey, we got gold and tribute. We got gold and tribute. Now you gotta be doing something really right for the Philistines. Now we ain't hear too much about them getting whooped up. Remember, they kind of just, after David put so many sparks on them, they kind of was like, yo, we just gonna go over here and just leave us alone. But now we see this nation is now coming back, once an enemy coming back. All right, Philistines and the Arabians brought them. Now, when I say the Arabians, I want y'all to look more towards like the Ishmaelite clans, right? Because Ishmael, he went up and they started their tribe. He had 12 tribes to span it out. If you go and you look at the Ishmael, the Islamic State, and how it's spanning out, you'll see that they all came from Ishmael, basically his tribe, and they just spread it out. Just like the tribe of Judah eventually came from Isaac. So when we see the Arabians, this is just a group or a kingdom or of people that would have been tribes of Ishmael or Arabian descent that they have been living in that land and mixing and mingling. Because remember, what did Ishmael do when he was looking for a woman? He intermingled. So now we have the Arabians. We have them. All right. So if you really want to look up the history of everybody and find out who's who in the zoo and where they come from and who they claim to be and what they are, all you got to do is start pulling on the strings. Go on the internet, pull a string here, pull a string there, and you'll find out people are a lot closer than they are. In fact, I laugh sometimes when I go on the internet and I say, how close are people to each other? And they pull up this thing called 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I didn't know everybody in the world was related to Kevin Bacon or close to Kevin Bacon like that. Strange things you find out when searching. All right, y'all laugh, man. Y'all might be related to Kevin Bacon. All right. Hey, it said that this man had 6 degrees, well, it used to be, away from everybody in Hollywood. All right. So, and the Arabians bought him flocks, 7,700 rams, and Jehoshaphat became increasingly great. He built places in the city. I'm at 12, and I'm at 13, and he had much work in the city of Judah, and the men of battle and the men of brave, and these were the numbers according to the father's house. Now, it's going to give a long list of all of his army, and we're not going to go through all that. We're going to go down to 19. These were the ones serving the kings, beside those who the king had put in the wall city. So he's building up his fort. And Jehoshaphat, all right. And Jehoshaphat had great riches and glory and aligned himself with who? Now, how many of you are really read ahead? Who is Ahab? How many people know Ahab's story? Let's just cut to the chase. Who know Ahab's story in here? Was Ahab a good guy? Ask him. Was he a good guy? What about his wife? Nothing? Not at all. So, what is wrong with this sentence? Let's say it again. And Jehoshaphat had great riches and glory, and he aligned himself with Ahab. Yeah.
Good and bad.
Good?
Bad like the king.
Okay. I ain't saying Ahab's status. I'm not saying Ahab's status is a good king or a bad king. We're looking at more of internal things that are leading to these ripples that we know are going to come, right? I've talked to a lot of people in my life, and sometimes I get on people's nerves. I'm not going to lie, because I ask them questions. Some of those questions are hard, but those are questions that I sometimes ask, and they pull on a string, like I said. And they'll pull on a string, and sometimes you'll get back to that first thing or that first time they made that decision. You'll be like, oh, that was it right there. And if they're true to themselves, they'll be like, yeah, that was about the time. That's probably about it. If you go to Solomon, right, we could all say, where did Solomon go wrong? So you see how easy it is to see, hey, that was the one thing that changed everything going forward, right? Then we see Jehoshaphat. Now, this is not saying Jehoshaphat is a bad guy. But you know, in the Proverbs, it talks about what? About company, the company you keep.
Correcting also. Corrupted manners.
It corrupts what?
Manners.
Good manners. Now, he married to this man. He married to this man through their intermarriage and relationships, so they're combined. You think you're going to be giving them good advice? All right, let's check it out. Let's just check it out. And some years later down the line, he went to visit Ahab in Samaria. So they're going to visit. I can go visit. I can go see him. And Ahab slaughtered. Come on in. I'm going to slaughter and kill some cattle for him and the people. And they enticed him to go up with them to Ramoth Gilead. Now, who is at Ramoth Gilead? We'll find out. It's a place in the city. And Ahab, king of Israel, said to Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, do you go with me against Ramoth Gilead? And he answered, because what answer you think he could give him? Man, this is my family of some sort, marriage. All right, so let's take a step back. I'm from the city. My cousin lived around the corner from me, literally a walk around the corner from me. Sometimes he'd come knock on my door. Hey, come over to my neighborhood and play. Oh, sure, no problem. Didn't know I was getting invited over for a fight. But when I got there, it was kind of too late. Hey, cuz, you gonna go over here and fight these guys with me? Because you know they causing me problems and you're strong. You get what I'm saying? So now this conversation, now let's put this conversation, and now that you got a context. And some years later, Ahab went down to Samaria. And Ahab made a killing of sheep and all this stuff to entice who? Jehoshaphat. And Ahab, the king of Israel, said to Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, do you want to go with me? Do you want to go with me against Ramoth Gilead? And he answered him, no, that's crazy, cuz we shouldn't go up there. We shouldn't fight. We shouldn't do that. He said, no, that's not what he said. His answer was, I am as you are, and my people as your people, even with you in battle. And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, please inquire of the word of the Lord today. Now, Jehoshaphat is asking, like, yo, before we go up here and get in this fight, I need you to go talk to the prophets, because that's what we do on our end. Remember, he is a good king. A good king does not do anything, go out to battle before consulting with the prophets so they can hear from God. So he said, hey, man, ask these prophets. And what does Ahab reply? Man, them motor scooters don't say nothing good about me. They ain't saying nothing about me, my name on the street. They hate me. All they ever do is prophesize bad about me. That's what he said. I can't make this up. He said, he said, please inquire the Lord, right, today. And the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, 400. You got 400. Is it really? You know, it's a funny thing. I always mention the 400, or I read it. 400, that is a lot. Till they get whooped on by one guy. 400 ain't nothing. 400 is 400 imposters is like zero. And it's proven. He called all the grand numbers of his prophets, right? And said to them, do we go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or to our frame? And they said, go up, for Elohim, specifically, they use this word, does give it into your hands. Now, normally when they speak like that, is because if we go back to Joshua, I know I keep going backwards, not forward, because I can go forward, pull out, but I go backwards, because the Lord was always on the battlefield with the people, right? So this statement would have meant that the God in the heavens concur, that the Lord who fights for us will be here, and the spirit around us, the earth, the things that he controls, he will move it and make it fight in our favor. He made the land open up, swallow people. It said, if you go back to Joshua, he said the Lord was so enticed in the battlefield that when Joshua yelled out the command to give them more time, in the heat of battle, the Lord looked to the sun and the moon, told it to stay in place just so he could continue to fight. Not Joshua. The Lord wanted to continue to fight. That's always the best, man. When I read the scriptures and I think about the power of the Lord stopping the sun and the moon, and if you don't believe it happened, NASA, history, and everybody else concur it. If you go and look at Mayan history, I did this for you, so you don't have to, but if you don't believe me, go look for yourself. I said to myself, I am a man who, God, you show me these things and I believe you. I want to believe it so much that I want to see it in real time in this world. Show it to me, God. Do you know if you go and look in NASA history, or wherever they'll have all the moon cycles repeated throughout time. They kind of rotate through area. That's why we can know where comets going to be and stuff like that. Well, if you go back on a certain day over in the Aztec, where the Mayans were, the moon stayed in place all night, so much to the point that the Mayans began to sacrifice virgins so that the moon would go away. Y'all ever heard about the Mayans? Y'all heard about the sacrifice they used to make? That was why. But on the complete other side of the world, if you go and you look up in Egyptian history on that day, NASA has it in Egyptian history say that on that day, the sun stayed in place. The Egyptians reported that the sun didn't move. It just stayed there. That was for history, the things that are past of old, things that are told, and NASA confirming that on that day, that it was an eclipse that held everything in place. So when we see them praying and saying that they're going to have the Elohim does give into the sovereign hands, that's a big thing that they're saying. But Jehoshaphat said, there's still not a prophet of the Lord here. Why did he say that? Did this man just call all those prophets up? And then they just speak in the name of the Lord. They Yahweh, Elohim, they said it right then and there. Didn't they just confess that? Why wasn't Jehoshaphat sold?
They were false prophets.
You know, Ahab got a bunch of nobodies over there. So why are you sitting with Ahab? You get where these questions coming in? If you won't trust his prophets, why would you trust him? Why are you sitting there eating his food and you know that he don't even trust the same God you trust in? In fact, when he told him, hey, get one of the lords, specifically said, Jehoshaphat said, and I'm going to say it how it said here. Jehoshaphat said, is there not still a prophet of Yahweh here so that we can acquire him? Because these other guys, they never was saying that that's what they were getting it from. That's why they said Elohim. They didn't want to put it in that context. So Jehoshaphat said, no, I want to double down. I need a prophet of Yahweh, the Lord, here to speak and give me this prophecy. I know I'm a little over, but bear with me. I'm almost done. So he asked him this. And the sovereign of Israel, which is who? Told the sovereign of Judah, which is who? There you go. I'm starting to put up, y'all remember him. there is still one man to inquire of Yahweh from him, but I hate him. See? Y'all thought I was joking when I said that man literally came out and said, I hate him. Because this man does nothing but prophesy against me. Whew. So you hate this man because every time God says something to him about you, you hate him instead of hating yourself and making a change. You know, I think about a lot of things when it comes to scriptures and how they're said. And sometimes I sit back and I say, I don't quite understand that, Lord. Give me a little bit more understanding. When it says you will hate your life. This man loved his life more than he loved the truth. He did not hate his life. He hated that man. You get what I'm saying? So now we see that this hate is internal. There is no saving Ahab because his own internal compass is off. It's not pointed towards God. Let's pause right there because afterwards we're going to roll into a little bit more of the Let's pause at 18:7. 2 Chronicles 18:7. He said, because he never prophesies concerning good concerning me. He always prophesies evil. Because you're evil. Like that man coming to tell you about God, he can only tell you the truth. So are there any questions? I hope I'll be making this clear as mud. But yeah, when I found out that, like, when they looked that up and historically, I said, wow,